That would be even cooler in a high stress scenario like this one, when you have these military guys who are like, yeah, we know what to do. We're going to do it, right? That's a highly trained, no nonsense. We're not going to waste time nodding to each other. We're just going to do a little jerk and we're good to go. That sounded wrong, but I promise it makes sense. Hey, want to be reviewed? Just send your animations in the Professor Goo review channel in the Discord. Each stream, I'll be going over one animation, which will be randomly selected from that channel. If you happen to be in stream that day, we'll go over it and maybe even jump into a call. If you want to watch these streams live, go to twitch.tv/DylanGoo. Hey Goos, welcome to the Professor Goo review. We are going to be talking about this animation submitted by Snappiness, which is just this amazing animation of a Jedi who's an original design, apparently. It's incredible, along with some clones fighting against some droids. And this is a 30-second clip from a longer animation, but this is the submission that we got. This is looking really, really good. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, we're going to be talking about specifically the animation and how we can improve the movement of these characters. The biggest thing is, I think, the weight of these characters needs to be a little bit more finessed. But specifically, we'll talk about three things. Floatiness, which is sort of like related to how do you get the weight to feel believable. And then we have snappiness, which has to do with how to get the weight to be properly, I guess like distributed in a way where you have things that weigh less and things that weigh more. You don't want everything to sort of feel like it's weighing about the same. And so the snappiness will help you show that certain things weigh less, right? Certain body parts, certain parts of the character, that kind of thing. And then we'll talk about anticipation. So anticipation is, of course, one of the principles of animation, which talks about specifically how do you lead up to an action, right? How do you build up the anticipation for a payoff? And those payoffs in animation are typically, just another motion of some sort. So yeah, we'll talk about those three things today. And we'll jump into it. So first things first, we'll talk about floatiness. So floatiness is going to be something that you see in a lot of animations. It's not something that's like uncommon. It's a very common, I want to say like mistake that people make, but it has to do with understanding physics, understanding the distribution of weight and balance. Floatiness has to do with any time where your center of mass or your center of gravity or whatever it is happens to be wrong. And whenever it happens to feel wrong, you get a little bit of floatiness. So let me show you like what I mean by that. So like this, surprisingly, this might be an unexpected point where you guys might feel floatiness right here. You'll notice that like his torso feels just slightly floaty, And basically what that means is when something feels floaty, it means it's not obeying the laws of physics that we understand, right? Because in real life, it wouldn't do it. So if in real life, in order to achieve the thing that you're seeing, it needs to basically disobey the laws of physics or weigh nothing, then that gives you a bit of a floaty feeling. Now, this is actually a very, very subtle thing. This one's actually relatively fine, but it's a good example of how floatiness can creep up on you on very, very subtle animations. So this one, for example, there's some inertia here, some momentum going forward, right? So we have this inertia. It's going forward. Oh, hang on. It's going forward, right? We have inertia, momentum, boom, boom, boom. And then suddenly, boom, directly down, right? Directly down. It's almost like, right? So that feels a little bit, quote unquote, floaty because it feels weightless. And that weightlessness comes from the fact that it's not having any forward inertia being preserved. So what you actually want, actually, I'll draw this as red. So what you actually want is something more like this, for example. You want there to be a certain amount of momentum sort of preserved as it goes down in a sort of diagonal way, right? And then you can go down directly. So there's that kind of arc that you would want that you can easily do with just a simple, adjustment of the torso. Now that also has to do with, of course, the placement of the foot, which we can talk about in a different time. But yeah, that's something that, for example, if you break the inertia rules, you will feel a little floaty. So let's talk about how that applies to some more bigger poses, right? Yes, and it's easy to miss these things because it's so subtle, but I think it's important to be able to identify these issues, the really, really small ones, because that will make your animation feel just that much more believable. The characters, when they're walking, they feel generally pretty okay. But when they do certain poses, like right here, This pose in particular feels a bit floaty. And do you guys think can you identify why this pose feels floaty right here? Bad center of gravity. That is correct. That is one of the big reasons, right? Where's the center of mass? That's everything is on this side, right? So this guy's about to fall over. I know he's one with the force. The force is with me. All blah blah blah. But yeah, I think ultimately this particular pose does feel floaty because of the fact that he would very much just fall down in real life. So Jedi magic, I mean, I believe it. Yeah. So that's one reason why that pose feels floaty. How do you fix that? Well, all you got to do. So you could have the foot here instead, and you'd be in much better shape already. I would also probably figure out a way to not lean the body as much that way and maybe just twist it instead of leaning it, right? So instead of leaning it here for this pose, like this pose here, instead of having the arms force him to lean, just twist it, but keep the spine up, right? You can do that. They're two different rotations, right? And then you can have the arms, do cool stuff. You can still have him walking, and stuff like that. So now where's the center of gravity? It's right here, right? Boom, that anchor point right there. So it's feeling a lot better already. So that's something that will feel a lot better if you just move that. I do think you do need to shift the weight a bit more this way, realistically, but that's a small thing. Oh, he's currently dodging a blaster, which is why he's turning that much. Hang on, let me see. That is a very good point, and I'm going to talk about that in the snappiness segment. Okay, so we're going to talk about snappiness because snappiness is something that goes hand in hand with floatiness because it actually does play into weight and weighting. So like when you have something that feels snappier, what you're doing is you're having this feeling that characters can move more comfortably, they can move more easily, right? So certain parts of their body might move a little bit faster or slower based on how much they weigh, for example. So like hands can move faster than butts. All right, that's just a fact. Okay, butts are heavier because they're attached to the center of mass. It's very easy to time everything at the same time, where like the hands will sort of move at the same speed that the butt moves because you want it to time all the poses in the same. So it doesn't work that way in real life. In real life, your hand, your heads, your eyes, they'll all move faster than your center of mass. So like things like that, you want to make sure you keep in mind. When things pivot around your center of mass, if everything's balanced, you can also move very, very fast. So like you have these things at your disposal when it comes to snappiness, like these certain types of movements and poses, which really helps complement any kind of, slow sluggishness, right? And so if we watch this animation back again, there's a couple times here where we're like, hey, you know what? Actually, I think that could have gone faster, right? I think that could have gone faster, even if it's not just because something weighs less, but because they have a little bit more control over their body, right? So here's like an example. Like right here, I think this dodging that he does here is rather slow. A couple reasons. First of all, he has actually very good center of mass here, right? Like he has very good center of mass. This is a great pose. This is a really, really good pose. He, in theory, especially as an athlete, should have full control over his body. It actually would allow him to get to this pose much faster than he does at the current moment, right? And you can do that to just have him feel a bit more athletic. And that has a lot of benefits. It also eliminates some of this sort of like driftiness that you see here. So how many frames does it take to get from here to here, right? So this is frame, 144, and this is frame 162. So it takes almost a full second just to go from this pose to this pose, right? That's a long time, right? So I think like if you were to have honestly a bit faster of a movement here, it would actually feel like he's actually dodging stuff. You'll feel more athletic, feel more dynamic. So he could actually move probably within, honestly, he could probably move that within like 10 frames, right? Half the time, maybe even less, maybe 6 frames, 8 frames, something like that. So like think about the snappiness there and see if you can improve the speed at which things happen. And this is another good example here. So this is an example of snappiness that can really benefit character acting because again, your head much faster than your butt. Remember. So right here, most people when they move their head, it's actually really hard. Try this in real life. It's really hard to move your head slowly. Most of the time, our heads want to move rather fast. Like when we're looking around like this, right? See that? I'm not going like, unless I'm like in a horror movie or something, right? But yeah, like that's something that like it's really hard for us to actually do that because our head is well balanced, our head is very light, our head has a good center of mass already, and then when we pivot, it just works. It's made for that, right? And so the same goes for nods, right? When we nod, we don't go like, right? This is again really hard to do. It takes kind of effort for us to do it slowly. When we nod, we just do this. It's a jerk. It's a jerking motion, right? So that's where snappiness can really benefit a movement like this, right? So see how slow these nods are, which it's good that they're synchronized, but imagine how much cooler it'd be if it was just like a, right? That would be even cooler in a high stress scenario like this one, when you have these military guys who are like, yeah, we know what to do. We're going to do it, right? That's a highly trained, no nonsense. We're not going to waste time nodding to each other. We're just going to do a little jerk and we're good to go. That sounded wrong, but I promise it makes sense. All right. Anyway, so we're going to keep going. So snappiness. Snappiness is more natural. We want to have that snappiness, which you mentioned. He's dodging a blaster. So he's dodging a blaster here. So here's the thing, right? This guy is literally dodging something that is moving, if I'm not mistaken, damn near the speed of light. Okay. He's dodging literal lasers. Okay. Not literally. I think blasters are slightly different. But he's dodging a laser. And how long does it take him to dodge it? How many frames? You know, I'm gonna count, Shadowbase. I'm gonna count. How many frames does it take for him to dodge literal light, right? Half a second? 15 frames? Something like that? In reality, he only has about 2 to 3 frames to move, right? So this right here would feel much more convincing as a dodge if we had something like snappier, right? So you can imagine something like that's fun. I've extended your canvas. Oh, in reality, before we see the laser, I should say, within frame, he's probably going to start dodging because he sees it first, right? So that's first and foremost. I think he would actually be probably moving the lightest part of his body first. So his head, right? Talk about snappiness. We talk about weight. Move the lightest part of his body first, right? And then he can move like the heavier part, right? That's fine. And so like let's say Shadowmations, you mentioned like wanting to lean this way. I can understand that. So let's say we lean this way. How do we make that work with especially the step that he's taking, right? Well, the answer is more snappiness. But instead of snappiness in terms of like how he's dodging, snappiness in terms of what his legs are doing. He should not be lifting his leg. He should be putting it down, but lifting it very quickly. So during this, he should probably have to interrupt his walk just to put his foot down here for a second and then continue his walk with either the same leg or a different leg. But if he can very quickly and very snappily change his pose to what you have here, then we have a really great dodging moment, right? So right here, boom, 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 whoa, right? Oh, right? That feels a lot more natural, and then he can come back in. And so notice how for me, when I'm drawing this guy here, actually he would probably recover and come back to go back up straight, and he'd be like, you know, chilling again. Within was it what 1, 2, 3, 5 frames. Within 5 frames or so, he's already back. It might take up to 8 frames maybe to like get that settle back into his normal pose, but like less than 10 frames for sure. And I think you have here about 12 to 15 frames, right? So our third point is actually anticipation. So anticipation specifically talks about an animation principle that just builds up literally anticipation for a move. Now you've got really good anticipation here. So this is good. So right here, you've got good anticipation. This is a great anticipation pose. Really, really good. A ding, right? So that's good. I think it could be slightly better. And this is just, you know, a small thing that I think could improve, which is simply to continue the anticipation during the payoff. So this is a really interesting thing. You can actually build more anticipation if you continue the anticipation during the payoff up until the very last second. So what you can have here, you have this great wind up, this wind back, I should say. So he winds his arms back, that's good. But what if you continue to, what if while he was moving forward, the arms sort of dragged behind him and emphasized even more of that like angularity here, right? Emphasize it even more. You see this, right? You feel that? You feel that energy from these arm poses here, right? You see that? That's actually going to be really, really good, and really exaggerating it, like pushing that as far as possible, right? And then when you do this, having the arms be basically as straight as possible would be a great contrast. And so that'll build anticipation even more. And again, you already have great anticipation poses. Like this is really, really good. This is just a small thing that I think like from a subtle perspective will add a lot more. All right. So with a bit of that anticipation, a bit less of the floatiness we talked about with center of mass considerations, and a bit more snappiness, I think this animation will look so good. It already looks amazing. The assets, the effects, the rendering, like the rain, like all the sparks, like the lightsaber. It's just, I mean, these are incredible. So like, it's already really, really good. So hopefully this helps. I think you're going to do a great job with it. I mean, as soon as you get this good to go, it's going to be great.